Good morning, guys. All right, in math, we've been focusing on coming back to our word problems and thinking about using addition in those, finding an unknown addend, and then in our fractions, where we've been focusing on how many parts make a whole. Let's focus first on our problem of the day, and let's take a look at this problem here. Peter collected 18 bottles for recycling. Jacob collected some more. Their total was 29 bottles. How many did Jacob collect? Okay, let's take a look at our job when we're thinking of keywords. Remember our job, first of all, we read it and we read it carefully. We want to think about what the story is telling us. Then second, we're going to look for keywords and numbers. Let's look at our keywords and numbers. Okay, so we know that Peter collected 18 bottles. So our first job is to look at what he collected, 18. So we see that he collected 18 bottles, so we write it in. Okay, now it says Jacob collected some more. Remember when we say the word some more? Tells us two things. Okay. I'm getting that marker that doesn't work. Some tells us we don't know that amount. More tells us we're adding it. So remember how those keywords are so important to us? Some more tells us I don't know how much, but I know it's more. That means I have to be adding. So when we're thinking about that, we're adding something. Today, instead of using a question mark, I'm going to go ahead and use a letter. Sometimes we use letters to represent what we're thinking about. So in this case, what is this letter? What are we looking for? We're looking for how many bottles that Jacob collected. So I'm going to put that as a B. So 18 plus B equals, let's see. Well, it says their total. So do you see that keyword total? That's important because it tells us what? It tells us sum. So their total was 29 bottles. So the sum of what they both collected was 29. Oops. Not a 1, a 29. So that means that our job right now is to figure out how many did Jacob collect? And that's our B right here. Okay, so we've been doing a strategy where we've been using a place value chart. I have been seeing people do such an awesome job of their place value chart. They've been putting in their tens and their ones, and they're taking the number that they know. Here in our case, it's 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they're taking the number they don't know. Here's a trick. It helps if we change the color. Remember how it helps us to be able to stay organized. Here is the 18 is what Peter collected. Now we're looking for what Jacob collected. Jacob collected some more, and we have to get to 19. So remember, we have 8, and we're just going to do 1 more to get to 9. And then we want to get to 29, so I'm going to do also 110, and that gets us to 29. Now, a lot of people have been boxing in the sum because we are used to boxing in the sum. But remember, guys, our job right now is not finding the sum. Remember, what are we finding? How many bottles did Jacob collect? So what did we find? Remember, this red is Jacob. 110 and 1. So how many is that? That is 21. So we're going to put 21 here. 21 is the answer we're looking for. It tells us how many bottles Jacob collected. All right, guys, for our fractions today, we know some key vocabulary that we've been working on. Partition, what does that mean? That's right, we're dividing up a shape into parts. When we have halves, how many equal parts do we have? You got it, 2. How about thirds? 3. And fourths? That's right, 4 equal parts. And when we have one whole, that's the shape we started with. Let's take a look at some shapes today. Instead of circles today, let's look at this rectangle. Do you see how I have one whole Is my rectangle cut up into parts? Nope, it's just one whole. I'm keeping it all together. But let's say that I want to turn my rectangle into 2 equal parts. Let's take a look at that. 2 equal parts, 2 equal parts, but they turn back into one whole rectangle. So when I compare them with my whole rectangle, look at, they're the same. 1 half, 2 halves, they make one whole. Now what about 3 equal parts? Do you remember what those are called? You got it, those are thirds. So let's take a look at our thirds. Here I have 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. And when I put them all together, what do I get? One whole, that's right. All right, what about if I want to cut them into fourths? I'm partitioning my whole into fourths. I'll have 4 equal parts. All righty, here I have them. 1, 2, 3. Am I done? Oops. Nope, I sure am not, because I have to make sure I have 4 equal parts in order to have fourths. And there they are, my 4 equal parts. And they made one whole rectangle. See, it's important to see when I put them back together, 1/4 is one of the 4 equal parts that I had to make my whole rectangle. That's why I need all 4 of them to make my whole rectangle. Because look, when I only have 3, there's still a part of my rectangle missing. Oops, apparently it's tough to hold them all up here. But there it is, I have 4/4 to make my whole. All right, scholars, now we could also use a shape like a square. Now in squares, they're kind of special because we don't have to cut them up and down to make columns or side to side, horizontally to make rows. We also can cut them diagonally, and they'll give us some triangles that are equal shares. Remember, equal means that they're the same size. So look at that. When I cut my rectangle in half, or my square in half, I can have 2 triangles that are the same size. That's how I know they're equal shares. And that's why it's special that these squares can be cut diagonally to make one whole square again. So there's 1/2 of my triangle, 2 halves of my triangle, and they make a whole square again. Take a look at this. What are these going to be? If I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts, what are those called? Fourths. We won't be able to cut thirds out of a square, not into triangles at least. So you can see that my fourths are going to come back together to make a whole square. If you have paper at home, you can try this out too. All right, let's take a look at our lessons for today. As we go into our activities, you're going to look here for your problem of the day. Our problem of the day today, remember, we're going to find out. Actually, guys, when we look at the problem of the day, I had a friend yesterday I talked to who didn't know that they could click on this side part here right next to the instructions and get another example. You can click on that, and Miss Moseley will be doing another problem to show you how to
Jonathan spent $15 on snacks. Then he...
So always click on that to get another example of how to do the problem. Then we'll add our response. And remember our job. We've got 4 of them. Remember, number 1, we read the problem to make sure we understand it. Number 2, we're going to highlight our keywords and numbers. Number 3, let's make an equation. And then number 4, let's do our job. Remember, our job is, what did the question ask us to do? We got to solve, like detectives. All right, and then in our math work, our SWON work, we're going to go right into our fractions, lesson 9. Again, there's going to be another lesson here. Please click on it, because I can tell those people who've been watching this example, I can tell because I can see the work that you're doing. I love how you're paying attention and making sure you're understanding your fractions. Great job. And you're going to click here, and Ms. Moseley is going to give you another example of how you're going to do the work on the page today. Remember to make sure you read the directions very carefully. Here's the page you're working on today. Here it's loading. Okay, number 1, we're going to shade in the whole rectangle. Remember, the whole rectangle means not part of it, the entire, all of it, the entire rectangle. Number 2, divide the rectangle into thirds. So when you're dividing into thirds, you can partition it, but it says also shade in each equal part. That means all of them. So remember, I love how a lot of you yesterday, you guys shaded it in 3 different colors to show that there are 3 different parts. That's awesome. That helps you understand fractions and make sure that you recognize that the big part that we have to know about fractions is that each equal part, if I have 3 equal parts in the whole rectangle, 3 equal parts equal, or 3/3 equal 1 whole. Okay, that's going to be our job. So when we look at number 3, it says partition the rectangles into fourths, shade each equal part. That means all of them. And then you'll see how many fourths make a whole. And number 4, divide the whole rectangle into halves. You shade in both equal parts, and then you can see how many halves make a whole. Number 5 and 6, they already shaded them for you. So your job is to just count how many parts are shaded, and you'll see how many fourths make a whole in number 5 and how many thirds make a whole in number 6. All right, guys, that's our math work for today. I hope you guys have an awesome day. I'm so proud of the hard work you've been doing and the learning that you're doing. Remember, it's always our job to learn. It doesn't matter if we're in a school building or if we're at home. There's always learning we still get to do, which is pretty awesome. Have a great day.